So today we're going to convert units. They'll mainly be metric units. However, the twist is there'll be area or volume units, which makes things a little bit harder. Now, there's certain relationships that you will already know. For example, you will know that there's 100 centimeters in 1 meter. That's a relationship with metric units of length. But I might need to convert between square meters and square centimeters, or cubic meters and cubic centimeters. You had a question like this in your recent exam, and it's one of the ones where lots of marks was lost, so that's why I'm going to go through the topic today. So suppose I want to convert 5.2 kilometers squared, or square kilometers, you can read that out loud either way, into square meters. What I do is I pick the larger of the two, so square kilometers are bigger than square meters, and I draw a little diagram. So this square here is supposed to represent 1 square kilometer. And 1 square kilometer is just 1 kilometer by 1 kilometer. Okay, what I'm now going to do is measure the sides, not in kilometers but in meters, because I want the answer to be in square meters, as in I want the area to be in square meters. So you should know that there's 1,000 meters in a kilometer. So this is 1,000 meters by 1,000 meters. If I want area I'm going out of focus. If I want area of a rectangle, I just multiply those two things together. So 1,000 times 1,000 is 1,000,000, or 1 with 6 zeros. So what I've established is that 1 square kilometre is the same as 1,000,000 square metres. Therefore, the scale factor I need here is 1,000,000. I multiply that by 1,000,000 and I get the answer. So I'm going to do 5.2 times by 1,000,000, which is 5.2 million, or 5,200,000. That's my answer. Okay, in the same way, for this next question, I look at these two units. I've got square millimeters and square centimeters. I'm going to draw the larger of the two. You can do it where you draw the small one, but then you get decimals on the sides and it gets a bit confusing. So it's probably easier to just draw the larger of the two. The larger is a square centimeter. So let's draw a little diagram of a square centimeter. I'm not getting a ruler or anything like that, it's just an approximation, it's just a little diagram to help me. There are 10 millimeters in a centimeter. I want my answer in square millimeters, so I'm going to go millimeters on the sides here. So that's 10 millimeters by 10 millimeters. So the area in square millimeters, multiply these together, 10 by 10 is 100. So there's 100 square millimeters in a square centimeter. Notice that you won't need as many square centimeters to describe the same area as you would in square millimeters. Because these are larger, you need fewer of them. So last time I had to multiply, but this time I will be dividing. So I need to do 8 divided by 100. So I get the answer 0.08 square centimeters. And I hope that makes sense. You don't need as many square centimeters as you do square millimeters when describing the same area, because each one is larger. Now these two questions are also about area units, but it involves hectares. This time I probably won't need to draw a diagram for this one. Football pitch is 110 by 72. I want to know how many hectares the football pitch is. Hectares is just another unit for area, and specifically it's 10,000 square meters. 1 hectare or 10,000 square meters, same thing. So I'm going to use my calculator for this one. It's a rectangle, so I just do 110 multiplied by 72. That comes out as 7920 square meters. And then the scale factor I need is 10,000. I divide by 10,000 to get from square meters to hectares. That's divide by 10,000, isn't it? So if I do 7920 divided by 10,000, you could do it on the calculator if you like, but let's just move in the decimal point 4 places. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 0.792 hectares. So a football pitch is not quite a whole hectare. It's about 79% of a hectare, basically. What I have done is show that 100 hectares is 1 square kilometre. Well, I know this relationship up here, don't I? That 1 hectare is 10,000 square metres. So I probably ought to do square metres turned into square kilometres first of all. So I'll use the method that we learnt before, where I say, well, okay, got square kilometres and square metres, but the square kilometres are bigger. So this is a picture of a square kilometre. And in meters, that's 100 meters by 100. So it's 1,000 meters, sorry, isn't it? It's 1,000 meters by 1,000 meters. 1,000 times 1,000 is 1,000,000. So this is 1,000,000 square meters. So I know that the original statement was that 1 hectare equals 10,000 square meters. If I divide this by 1,000,000, I get that 1 hectare is, if I divide it by 1,000,000, that's 0.01 kilometers squared. Okay, just dividing by 1,000,000. In order to change the units, so I'm not making it a million times smaller, I'm just changing the units here. And then I multiply both sides by 100. Times that by 100, you get 100 hectares. Times that by 100, you get a whole square kilometre. Okay, and it's much the same idea if you want to convert volume units. In this question, I've got some cubic meters and some cubic centimeters. The larger of those two is the cubic meters, so I'm going to draw a picture of a cubic meter. So that's something that measures 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. Okay, so here's my rubbish little picture of a cubic meter, 1 meter by 1 meter by 1 meter. So that's a cubic meter. If I measure it all in centimeters, then that's 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters. And 100 times 100 times 100, I'll put it out here, is 1,000,000 again, isn't it? Okay, 100 times 100 times 100 is 1,000,000 cubic centimeters. So we've established that there are 1,000,000 cubic centimeters in 1 cubic meter. So to do this conversion, it's just the 12 times 1,000,000. 12 times 1,000,000 equals 12,000,000 cubic centimeters. And I'm done. Down here, I want to convert between cubic millimeters and cubic centimeters. I'm going to draw the big one. Here, the big one is a cubic centimeter, because centimeters are bigger than millimeters. Okay, so this is my representation of a cubic centimeter. And if I'm measuring all of these in millimeters instead, that's 10 millimeters, 10 millimeters, 10 millimeters. 10 by 10 by 10 is 1,000. So this is 1,000 cubic millimeters, and in fact that's the one that was on your exam, wasn't it? Okay, that's the one that you had to do in the exam. I think it was converting between cubic centimeters and cubic millimeters. Now in this case, because this is the larger of the two units, I don't need as many of them to describe the same volume, so I'm going to do 250 divided by 1,000. 250 divided by 1,000. That's a quarter, isn't it? It's 0.25 cubic centimeters. And I'm done. And finally, it's worth pointing out that you can sometimes have volume or area units hidden inside others. Now, you know that when we do densities, we have a compound unit, something like grams per centimetre cubed, and look, we've got cubic centimetres sitting in there. That's not the only unit you could use for density. You could have something like kilograms per cubic metre. That would work as well. But notice how we've got some volume units just lurking inside the compound unit for density there. In the same kind of way, when you measure a pressure, the standard unit to use is newtons per square meter, also known as a Pascal, but you could also have newtons per square centimeter or kilonewtons per meter squared. There's all sorts of exotic units you could use, but notice how they've got some area units hidden inside. Therefore, a question like this, it looks like it's about density, but I actually need the methods we were just talking about. So I've got some gold. If you had 1 cubic centimetre of gold, it would weigh 19.3 grams. That's how we're supposed to understand that. I want to know how many kilograms would a cubic metre weigh, basically. So I'm going to draw a cubic metre. So a cubic metre looks something like this. 1 metre by 1 metre by 1 metre. In centimetres, that's 100. So like we said before, this is 1 million cubic centimetres. So I know that, well, if I had 1 cubic centimetre of gold, it would weigh that many grams. But if I had a cubic metre, that's 1 million times more. A cubic metre is massive. If you imagine sort of stretching your arms out and trying to hold a cubic metre of anything, it's a massive, massive cube. So a cubic metre is much bigger. It would weigh much more. So if I do 19.3 times by 1 million, I get 19.3 million, don't I? So 19,300,000. And the units there are grams per cubic metre, because all I've done is I've converted between the cubic centimetres and the cubic metres by doing this multiplication by 1 million. So I've gone into how many grams a cubic metre would weigh now. And I now need to turn the grams into kilograms. Well, there's 1,000 kilograms in a gram, so divide this by 1,000, that's losing 3 noughts, so it's going to be 19,300 kilograms per cubic metre. And I'm done. And one final thing that's worth saying, this is also related to volumes, is capacity units. Now we need to be a little bit careful with these, because really this only applies to things which are water, and if they're at a certain height above sea level and blah blah blah. But all of these sort of situations will be simplified in a maths exam. If we're measuring a capacity in litres, then you may merrily switch that to this volume. Okay, 1 litre is 1,000 cubic centimetres. From there, you can turn it into other volume units if you wish to. You can express that even more simply if you like, that 1 millilitre of water would take up 1 cubic centimetre of space.